What's going on, everybody? Tim from Tierfon Orbital. So I'm going to quickly go over a hilt that I recently completed install. I actually finalized the install today. This is for an SP Sabers Shroud of the Darkside. This is based on Palpatine's hilt. So it is a very, very interesting looking hilt. Listen, I'm going to be completely transparent and upfront. I don't like this hilt. I never liked Palpatine's hilt. I know that I've said in the past, and I say this all the time actually, when I do an install on a hilt that I historically never liked, I usually fall in love with the hilt. That didn't happen here. I just am not a fan of Palpatine's hilt. But all of that being said, it doesn't matter what I think about the hilt. The only thing that matters is, this is for the client. This is the client's hilt, right? So that was my full disclosure statement, right? We're going to talk about the hilt. We're going to talk about the chassis. Luckily, once again, I dodged a bullet here and used a chassis that was designed by another installer / designer. This particular chassis was designed by Jeremy over at Solo Sabers. So Jeremy did the heavy lifting for me on this one, which I lucked out on, honestly. This is not an easy hilt to design a chassis for. It's very small. We've got multiple inner diameters in the hilt. It's got an angled pommel, so not a very easy hilt to design a chassis for. SP Sabers does provide an STL or I believe a printed version of the chassis as well, but the client chose to go with Jeremy's chassis for this particular install, right? So without further ado, let's come up top and talk about the hilt, and then we'll do a quick demo. So here it is. This is the Shroud of the Darkside from SP Sabers. Hefty hilt. This might be brass or steel. I feel like I should know that, but I don't. It's very heavy. It's super high polished chrome finish, really, really unique paint scheme. I feel like this is very accurate to the film version of Palpatine's hilt. But yeah, as I mentioned, very, very short hilt, right? And we've got a very interesting pommel here. It's like an angular pommel. It does have a set screw that holds it in place. But yeah, really, really interesting hilt, right? So how to use, so this is the chassis. This is from Jeremy at Solo Sabers. So as you can probably see, right, we've got two diameters here. It's just such a very strange. Naturally, for me, I would assume that the thinner diameter is up here, but it's not, right? And the chassis does not get fed into the hilt from the bottom. It gets fed in from the top, and that's the only way that you can do that because the thinner inner diameter is down here. So you can't start with a thinner yeah, it's just very interesting setup, right? So there are two drop-in magnetic switches that serve as your switches on the outside of the hilt. There are two tactile switches on the surface of the chassis that those will make a connection to. These particular tactiles have a steel head in them, so those magnets will stick to that steel and help them to stay in place. If you don't utilize magnets for these guys, they will fly about. They have a tendency to come out of the hole of the switch. So I wanted to put magnets on these guys just to help keep them in place. And it's got some steel in here to help magnets stick, right? Jeremy also incorporated some holes in the lower part of the chassis. I actually put a 2020 NeoPixel strip down here with some mylar for diffusion, just to add some extra accents. I'm pretty sure that's why Jeremy put those holes there anyhow, right? We've got our speaker pogo pin set up down here, and that's it, right? Battery trays here. This is an 18350 battery setup, and that's it. Very, very small, right? So let's talk about how to use this guy. As I mentioned, this is an 18350 battery setup. Spring side is your negative. Put the flat part of your battery down in that battery tray. This is a Proffie V3, so you will see the status light turn green when you get your battery in there. You're not going to hear anything because there's no speaker currently connected to it, right? So full disclosure, this is a very particular, very finicky hilt to use, right, to the client. So just so you know, this is how you're going to put your chassis in. So here's the top of the hilt. Angled side goes down towards the pommel. I like to, well, we've got to take this off first. So unscrew your emitter, okay? Slide your chassis in. I like to line up the switches with those switch holes. I like to stick my finger down at the bottom here and just kind of help feed it all of the way down until you see those switches on the inside of those switch holes. You kind of want to make sure that it is straight, right? Otherwise, that angled PCB speaker pogos will not make a good connection, right? So you get your chassis in, put your emitter back on. I made a post, the glams for this hilt earlier today, and the glams that I posted had the emitter upside down. So Sean from SP Sabers went out of his way to make sure I knew that they were upside down. So yeah, I've never been good with attention to detail, right? So there is a speaker pod for this as well. There's a 28mm pancake speaker in here. This speaker pod was also designed by Jeremy from Solo Sabers. So putting this in is also a little finicky. Okay, line up those two PCBs. Put your speaker in. So another way to tell if you're making a good connection, you can turn the hilt on and then put your speaker pod in. Kind of twist it until it makes a connection. You know you're lined up, and then you want to put your pommel on. Okay. There is I wouldn't call this a cover tech. Let's turn this off. I wouldn't exactly call this a cover tech. It's kind of like a decorative greebly, but this also holds the pommel in place. Okay. So once you get your chassis in, you get your battery in, make sure your speaker is lined up. We get our magnetic switches, okay? Just drop them in those switch holes.
You're not worth my time. Being an
That's it.
inquisitor taught me I'd never touch nothing again.
We've got a lit PCB emitter from Shadowfoil. Let's come down to the bottom here. Okay, so here it is. Average size, right? So twist to activate, twist to deactivate are all on. You know, listen, I'm just, I really don't want this to become an op-ed, right, or an opinion piece. I just, drop in switches like this. They're just always very finicky. Every time that I've done a hilt and installing a hilt with magnetic switches like this, it's just more of a pain in the butt to get them out, right? So these, because of the shape of these plunger switches, you can't grab them with your fingers, right? So getting them out is difficult. It's just a really, really finicky hilt, right? That 28 pancake doesn't sound too bad, right? So let's put a blade in it really quick. Okay, so this is a full length blade too. This is a 7/8 inch blade holder, okay? There is a set screw, which I do appreciate this. This is an M3 set screw. There's a set screw right here in the lip of the emitter, and you're ready to go. So let's see what else we got on here. I mean, I will say, it's got interesting form factor. It's small, So this has been set up with color wheel. To activate color wheel, you want to hold down aux and tap main. When you find a color you like, tap down main again, and it will lock that color in. I can't swing it around too much because this is a full-length blade, right? But super unique hilt. I say that about every hilt. It's super
I'm
unique.
never touching that thing again.
Lord Vader.
See what else we got on here.
That's a mirror. Won't be your prey.
Yeah, so that's it. You know what? It does have a very interesting form factor, honestly. So yeah, super interesting hilt. It's got a very unique form factor, obviously, right? It looks the way it looks, right? But it does feel very interesting in hand. I don't know if that's because of the weight or how small it is, but it's a very, very, very interesting feeling hilt in hand. So to the client, thank you very much for trusting me with your install. To the viewers, everyone, if you have any questions about this particular hilt or this install, please don't be a stranger. And with that being said, may the force be with you always. Have a good one, everybody.